I'm originally Dutch, and I came here when I was 6, and then sort of towards the end of third year university at Deakin, I decided I needed to see something else, so I ended up going back to Holland to study. I must say, up until that time, I'm in that generation where CAD really wasn't adopted. Like, we were doing 2D AutoCAD classes at Deakin at that stage. So we're really on that cusp of students going through learning CAD and BIM software. Went to Delft, studied there for 3 or 4 years to do my master's, and as part of that experience I was first introduced to Archicad, and a company similar to yourselves in Holland was the sort of point of contact, and I got a student license and I sort of worked with it, but having no CAD background and not understanding documentation that well, I actually did my entire final year thesis in Archicad, but I managed to do it in a way where I didn't have to document anything. So everything was just modelled and rendered. And I built up this story and pieced it all together. So that was my sort of introduction. I've done a lot of AutoCAD work, a lot of SketchUp work. My wife and I spent a number of years at Bill Lease in Melbourne, and they were on MicroStation Triforma. So we picked that up, and that was great. Then I went to a smaller office. It was back to AutoCAD Lite, SketchUp, Rhino, and then we ended up in Bendigo, and that was my first touch on Revit. And coming from that SketchUp to AutoCAD Lite environment to Revit was like a revelation, and basically said never go back. In that, we worked there for 8 years and used Revit for that time. We decided to set up our own company. That was our, I guess, natural progression. And at that time, I said to myself, I want to do something that I want to do and not what's being forced upon me. So I already had, at that stage, thoughts in my head like, I love working on Macs. I want to work on a Mac. I want to work on a CAD package that I am happy with. So at that stage, I think I bought my first Archicad license. Even for us, we're small players. We see that here in Bendigo. We're very unassuming. People here think we do, boutique homes. Yet in the last 7 years, we've documented probably about $75 million worth of jobs, and built about 50 million of them. And a lot of that's leveraged off the BIM side of it. So in our industrial work, we're putting out 200 to 300 drawing packages, and doing that with 2 people generally, and doing 1 or 2 of those a year. And it becomes really important that workflow and again, the satisfaction of doing what you're doing and sort of comes through, because I don't have an array of drafties here that I can handball everything and do the nasty grunt work. I'm here on the cold face myself in terms of the documentation. Like that. COVID for us was really the crux, or that crossroads again, to say, what are we doing and how are we evaluating ourselves, our business? We've been through some business coaching, and the thought of Archicad came up again. And the biggest driver for that was that we were due to do, we had 2 Revit AEC licenses, and we were to renew them in June. Now at that stage, we had already cut back everywhere financially, and I got to the realization to say, if I don't pay this, I can't work. And that didn't sit well with me. I had a Archicad license, and at that stage we started talking to Surab, and just made that jump and said, look, I've got one, I own it. If this ever happens again, we can continue without that stress. So part of that was out of necessity. Part of that was basically re-evaluation of what we're doing. Now, the things I wanted to do is I wanted to enjoy working in it. Our office does a lot of, was heavily reliant on sort of 3D, and I wouldn't say we're sort of full BIM, but we've got aspirations to do that, and we see the value of that. And a lot of the projects we work on are construction management projects, design and construct projects, and they're usually fairly large. So I've always had comfort in setting up models and being able to jump into the model, whether we're at that stage of documentation or not, to give the builder some advice to say, yes or no, we can't fit that, or we can fit that, because I can see it. And that has given us the ability to deliver sort of large projects with comfort on tight time frames. So basically our work then is really residential, educational, commercial and industrial. And industrial is a large part of it. So one of the things that was worrying me a lot about this transition was we work with, we're a small office, you know, a minnow kind of thing in the world of some of these projects that we work. And we work with large multidisciplinary offices of like Accor or WSP at the moment, who, when you see their CAD manuals and their Revit BIM manuals, you get a little bit scared and think, you know, am I going to fit into this? And it was really about saying, you know, I've got comfort in what I'm doing. I think this choice we've made to move back to Archicad is not only a personal one in terms of using it, being able to produce things that we want to produce, but also hoping to give something a little bit more back to our clients in terms of value add. And what's sort of becoming apparent in terms of the processes that we're going through, and we're learning stuff, and I'm doing everything for the first time, and I feel like I can't draw some days, you know, why is that not showing up? And but what I have noticed is Archicad is a very mature product, and they've always seemed to concentrate on what they do well. So I'm much more interested in, I guess, a product that concentrates on us as architects, and rather than a big multinational who puts their budgets across all sorts of fields. And you sort of feel that as you use the software. You know, we're not engineers. We work with engineers, let the engineers do what they want to do. Some of those tools aren't relevant for us in that sense. The things that sort of stand out to me in terms of the Archicad process is I think it's got to do with that maturity, and it feels like there's more, I don't know, completely sort of, it's a complete assumption, but more thought put into how the elements work. And I sort of see that by their releases are very focused on different parts rather than just upgrading bits and pieces all over the shop and saying that's our new release. So I think that filters through in in the way things work. So for example, the document management, I'm getting used to now and really enjoying that, in the sense of we're setting up big drawing lists, and just to be able to automate some of those parts or to have some smarts about that is fantastic. The renovation filter has taken a little bit to get used to, but every aspect I touch on these things, I can see they say Archicad is really intuitive, which I think it is. I'm looking at it from a sort of BIM manager point of view, and I'm seeing all these, underneath this intuitiveness, there's actually a hell of a lot of thought being put into it, and there's so much possible, and especially after the sessions with Nando, and you see what you don't see on the web videos or YouTube or whatever is, oh my God, can you do that? I've had a few of those moments. I love the flexibility modeling. I love the fact that you can separate classifications and layers. I don't know if it's just me, but I have a feeling, from my experience, that Archicad handles DWGs better than than Revit, which for me is just a crazy concept, coming from the same sort of stable. I like the accessibility of different formats. So I found with Revit that you're very much, it's very much they're building their own ecosystem. So we've always embraced the idea of sort of open BIM, but never really practiced it. And the other big winner for us is the BIM Cloud, just the free version to be able to share files remotely without any complexity, because that was something in Revit we faced on a number of occasions. And look, I'm lucky enough to live across the road from the office. So for me now, the first thing I did was set up the BIM Cloud. I can finish up here on time, but if I need to, I can open up a drawing at home and just do something without having to come back. And again, in these times, we haven't had any staff in the office for the last 6 months, so it's about that working from home scenario. And that to me is a no-brainer in the sense that I don't want to be paying for that kind of thing in terms of a BIM 360 model. And I understand there's different complexities and different things you can do with it, but for us, really, that basic sharing thing, without all the added bits and pieces, is really important. In my discussions, we deal a lot with Accor in Melbourne, which used to be Consulting, and one of the lead engineers there gave me a lot of comfort to say, look, we work with a lot of architects on Archicad and it's no problem. We work with a lot of other consultants who like to throw Revit models around purely because it's easy for them. It was I guess the financial incentive too, and the flexibility that Central Innovation gave over, say, the Revit resellers. So if it wasn't just resourcing, I'd be saying, look, the avenues to jump over in terms of cost, the whole discussion of cost of ownership is really important, and that's not something you don't think about when you're in the trenches and sort of doing the grunt work and trying to get work out. But COVID has made me stop, so maybe it's just really about saying to people, step back and look at your business and what is it going to mean moving forward, because we did the cost of ownership, and I reckon just in our case we would have probably saved about 20 grand over 5 years just on the 2 licenses we've got. I think it's multifaceted. It's probably support, being available. The time with Nando's been invaluable. I think that turnaround time is important when you're going through this and you're producing stuff. You don't need to follow the masses just because of money. That's the biggest thing I've probably taken out of it. We're looking for tools that do the job and do the job for us, the best fit for what we do, I guess. And you hear it a lot, we're going to Revit because everyone uses it. Or, even from clients, the client perspective, we get tenders in, and the last one that came in was for a flour mill. And the tender documents read, as a deliverable, we want Revit models. My first question is, are you sure they want Revit models? Or they just want a model to look through for coordination? They couldn't answer that, but it's just interchanging of words. Whereas, from where we're now separated to that, so, well, if you want that, and that's the other thing I like about the collaboration side of it, I don't necessarily want to give out my IP in terms of my modelling, which is happening all too easily these days. So just, the last feed mill we got the entire Revit documentation set in model form from another supplier, and that there was a lot of elements in there that were really beneficial for sort of future growth, if you know what I mean. So I'd rather be issuing IFC or something of that nature. Been fortunate enough to be talking to Nando about project-specific things and helping us through to be able to deliver what we think we're doing. So it's that discussion. This is what I did in Revit. This is what I'm trying to achieve. How do you do that here? And he's been really good at that. Like I said, we've sort of jumped into it now. All our projects are pretty much going in there. We're getting a lot of support. And that's one comment I should say is that the interface with Central Innovation, and in particular Surab and his follow-up, as a customer, has felt like someone's actually listening, someone cares about what I need to do.